Deep in the Mediterranean, on the ancient, sun-baked islands of Malta, there's a mystery that's literally carved in stone. For thousands of years, people have told stories about giants who built these massive temples that, honestly, defy all explanation. But are these just myths, or is there something more buried just beneath the surface? Okay, let's dig into this.
So, picture this. It's 1985. A contractor is digging a foundation, and he makes this frantic phone call. He tells the landowner his crew just unearthed human bones. But there's a problem, a big one. The skeleton they found was 10 feet long. I mean, impossible, right? Well, except on Malta. A claim like that taps into a legend that's as old as the islands themselves.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with those ancient legends, a land of giants. Then we'll dig into the actual archaeological evidence. We'll descend into the secrets of a mysterious underground world, talk about some myths and missing children, and then we're going to separate the hard facts from the fiction to get to the real unsolved mystery of Malta.
To really get this whole mystery, we have to go back to the beginning. It all starts with the legend of a giantess, a figure named Sansuna.
According to Maltese folklore, Sansuna was, well, a survivor. She was this demigod, part of a race of giants called the Nephilim, often described in ancient texts as the kids of gods and humans. The story goes she arrived on the island thousands of years ago. The locals, understandably, were terrified, but she promised to protect them. And to prove it, she started to build.
And we're not talking about small huts here. She supposedly lifted and carried these enormous limestone blocks, some of them weighing an incredible 20 tons. Just remember, this was supposed to be happening thousands of years ago, way before cranes or any kind of advanced tools. And if you think 20 tons is a lot, that's not even the most impressive part. In some of the temples she supposedly built, the blocks weigh over 50 tons. To put that into perspective, that's like the weight of a fully loaded semi-truck, and she was moving these with her bare hands.
She didn't just build one temple and call it a day. The legend says she single-handedly built 30 different megalithic temples across Malta and its sister island Gozo. I mean, an absolutely incredible feat, if it's true. But for centuries, that's all it was, a story, until people actually started digging.
Okay, so now let's get into how this local myth started turning into a full-blown archaeological puzzle, with some really tantalizing clues that seem to prove the legends were real. The hunt really kicked off way back in the 17th century. In 1647, a nobleman named John Abella found these enormous bones he was convinced belonged to giants. Fast forward to the early 20th century, and an archaeologist, Sir Themistocles Zomet, makes these stunning discoveries. And by 1920, the mystery was so deep that even National Geographic was running stories about a possible alien race in Malta. And that Bella's discovery? It was staggering. The femur bone he found was apparently twice the size of a normal human's. A person with a thigh bone that big would have stood somewhere around 10 feet tall. I mean, for the first time, it felt like there was actual, physical proof that matched the legends. The giants, it seemed, were real.
But the mysteries weren't just about bones. The temples themselves held some crazy secrets. The Menajra Temple, for instance, is a perfect astronomical calendar. It lines up with the sun on the equinoxes and solstices. But here's the kicker. Because of the Earth's slow wobble over millennia, that alignment was only perfect around 10,200 BC. That's thousands of years before historians thought anyone was capable of building something like this. And just when you think it can't get any weirder, the plot thickens. Explorers went underground and discovered this massive, multi-level labyrinth called the Hypogeum. And this place, it held even stranger secrets.
The Hypogeum was found by accident back in 1902, and it was stunning. It's this huge underground complex with the same precise, massive stonework you see in the temples up on the surface. Inside, archaeologists found the remains of thousands of people. But mixed in with them were about a dozen skulls that were, well, they were unlike anything anyone had ever seen before.
So you're probably asking, what exactly made these skulls so bizarre? Well, it wasn't just their long, stretched-out shape. It was their fundamental anatomy, something that just seemed impossible.
Okay, so here's the really strange part. Every single human skull, yours, mine, everybody's, has this faint line right down the middle. It's called the sagittal suture, and it's where the plates of our skull fuse together as we grow up. But these elongated skulls, they had no seam at all. Anatomically, that should be impossible for a human.
And that just fueled all the speculation that whoever these belonged to wasn't entirely human.
So with the discovery of these skulls, you can imagine what happened. The stories about the hypogeum just spun out into the realm of the truly terrifying. We're talking eyewitness accounts of giants and these chilling tales of people just disappearing.
So, get this. In 1940, a woman named Lois Jessup wrote this account for National Geographic. She claims she explored a hidden chamber deep inside the hypogeum. And there, she said, she saw a procession of giant beings, some 25 feet tall, who were beckoning to her from across this chasm, right before a gust of wind blew out her candle and plunged her into total darkness.
Jessup's story actually connected to an even more horrifying local legend. The story of 30 school children and their teacher who took a field trip into the hypogeum and were never seen again. For weeks after, their mothers claimed they could hear their kids crying from beneath the ground, but no trace of them was ever found.
These are some incredible stories. I mean, truly wild stuff. But how much of it is actually real? It's time to pull out the magnifying glass and separate the hard facts from the fiction.
So when you actually look closer, the reality is quite a bit different. Those supposed 10-foot skeletons? Turns out, the bones John Abila found were later identified as belonging to extinct dwarf elephants. The 7,000 bodies in the hypogeum? Nope, it was actually 7,000 bones, which came from about 120 skeletons in total. And the missing children? It's a powerful urban legend for sure, but there are zero official reports of it ever happening. In fact, Lois Jessup's story even mentions the mythical school trip, which casts some serious doubt on her whole account.
But what about those impossible skulls? Well, here's the thing. They are very, very real. They were just put on public display a few years ago. Now, some of them do show signs of artificial head binding, a practice some ancient cultures used to change the shape of the skull. But others don't. They remain a genuine anatomical puzzle that science has not yet been able to fully explain.
So, once we strip away all the myths and the legends, what are we left with? Well, we are left with a profound and very real mystery that is, in a lot of ways, even more incredible than the story of giants.
Here are the undeniable, absolutely baffling facts. Carbon dating proves these temples are over 1,000 years older than the Great Pyramids of Giza. They were built by a people who had not yet invented the wheel. They had no metal tools, and they hadn't even developed a system of writing. And yet somehow, they created these massive, astronomically precise structures.
And that leaves us with the ultimate question. If it wasn't a giantess named Sansuna, then who were these master builders? How did a Stone Age culture on this isolated island pull off one of the greatest engineering feats in human history? That is the true, unsolved mystery of Malta, a profound reminder of a lost chapter in the human story and of the incredible, almost forgotten potential we once possessed.